Welcome to the Lean Out Your Business podcast, a show dedicated to helping entrepreneurs accelerate business growth and simplify success. I'm your host, Krista Grasso, and I've been working with businesses for more than 2 decades to help them lean out and optimize what's working while eliminating anything that's not adding value. So if you are ready to get more time back in your day, more profit in your business, and to do business differently, growing and scaling on your terms, let's dive into today's episode. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Lean Out Your Business podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about the power of the pivot. And pivot is one of those interesting words, right? If it doesn't immediately make you think of Friends, sometimes it makes people cringe. I know people have kind of a love-hate relationship with the word pivot, but the reason I wanted to talk about it today is if you are experiencing what I'm finding so many of the businesses that I've been working with are experiencing, it's that a lot of the things that were working in your business previously are not working the same way that they were before. So people are having to really get creative, reimagine some things, change a lot up in their business. And so it's just naturally a time when people are having to make pivots. And whether that is true for your business right now or not, there will be a point in time in your business where you are going to be faced with having to make changes. So let's dive in today and look at how you can approach making these pivots in a way that takes you closer to the vision and goals that you have, as opposed to taking you further away from them and ending up distracting yourself with things to try to generate revenue or drive business in the short term that actually take you further from where you want to go in the long term. So the first thing that I want to talk about is sometimes we think of pivot as this major change. And sometimes we do need to make major changes in business. More often than not, those pivots are actually small changes. There is a quote in Lean that is used often, which is evolutionary change over revolutionary change. And as entrepreneurs and visionaries, a lot of times when we think of change, we think of the revolutionary change. We think of the big, huge changes. We're going to burn this thing to the ground and start over. We're going to throw something completely out. We're going to completely reimagine something from scratch. And sometimes we do need that period. We need almost like that phoenix energy of something brand new rising, right? And I've been through many of those periods throughout my entrepreneurial journey. And sometimes those are right. But more often than not, the thing that we have, the thing that was working before, the thing that is maybe our signature offer, or the thing that we're trying to scale to become our signature offer, the thing that was getting some traction that all of a sudden just isn't landing in the way that it used to, or isn't converting in the way that we were hoping that it would. More often than not, it's a minor pivot that's needed. It's more of a 5-degree to a 15-degree shift instead of throwing it out and starting over. So the first thing is, when you think of pivot, when you think of change, how big does it really need to be and how much do you really need to change it? And the most important thing that I think of when we're making these pivots in our business is to do it from a strategic place, not to do it from a reactionary place, because it can be really easy to get frustrated and be like, that's it. I'm never doing this again. This didn't work. This was a waste of time and money. I'm never doing it again, right? And it can be really easy to react to the disappointment in something not working the way we want, in people not getting the importance of something that we know would be so completely transformational for them. But it's important to take a step back, to be a little bit objective. And if you find you're in a place where it's hard for you to be objective, work with your business coach, work with your business mentor. Get a business bestie on the phone if you need to. Get somebody who can help you look at the situation objectively to say, okay, you know what? This didn't land. That's life. That's business. Sometimes things work. Sometimes things don't. Sometimes there's things maybe you could have done differently. Sometimes there's things that are just purely out of your control. And even with your very best effort, they're just simply not going to land the way that you always hope they will. And so you want to take that objective look and be able to say, what's the right next move to make here? Is this offer, is this program, is this thing the right thing from a macro level? overall, is it still the right thing to do? Is it still something that's aligned? Is it something that's fulfilling? Is it something that would provide value for your clients and profit for your business, right? If the answer is yes to that, then you want to get down to some of those more micro changes, those micro pivots, where you're looking at, all right, do I need to repackage this? Maybe the way I currently have it packaged is what's not landing really well for people. Maybe they need to consume something or participate in something in a different way than the way they were previously. Maybe it's not the packaging, but it's the pricing. And if you're finding that the pricing needs to shift, one thing that's really important is you do not want to take something, let's say you have a signature offer that's a $5,000 value. You don't want to take that offer and all of a sudden cut it down to a $3,000 price point, thinking, well, if money is an objection, then clearly if I just lower the price, people will buy it. If you do that, you end up devaluing that price. It's really hard to ever bring it back to that $5,000 price point. And anyone who did fully invest in that program, you're going to get a lot of really unhappy prior customers saying, hey, I paid $5,000 for this. Why is it $3,000 now? Right? You need to be really careful and intentional with that. But let's say you look at the offer and you say, you know what? Realistically, right now, when I look at my market, I think 3,000 is the sweet spot that people are willing to spend, and they're just not willing to spend 5,000 right now. There's a little more hesitation in their buying decision when it's over 3,000. This is purely hypothetical. So if you have a $5,000 program, I am not telling you to reduce it to 3,000. Just to be super clear, this is just hypothetical example here, but let's say that you do have that $5,000 program, but you know that right now your market, the place where they're willing to make an investment, kind of caps at about 3,000. Well, what you can do is look at your current offer and reimagine it to be a $3,000 product, right? How can you change what you do? Maybe you take some pieces away. Maybe you take one core piece of the program, ideally something that's going to give somebody a quicker win or some really incredible results. So they're then seeing the value and they want to continue. And how can you take that piece off and turn it into something that's going to be super valuable for your client, super profitable for your business, meet people where they're willing to spend, but naturally lead to retention and upsell because of the results that you're going to get somebody. So that's one thing that you can do if it's a pricing thing. Sometimes I just see people reactively, again, instead of strategically, reactively just cut prices and say, well, that's it. If people aren't buying it at this price, I'm just going to charge this for it instead. And that actually ends up backfiring in a way that they weren't anticipating, because I think we all know a lot of times pricing objections aren't really pricing objections. Now, the reality is, sometimes people do not have the funds to invest in something at that point in time or in that particular season in their business. And that is absolutely true. But more often than not, if somebody could invest in your program and they're objecting at the price, it's usually that they don't clearly see the value or don't clearly see how it will help them and feel like it's really the right solution for them, which takes us to the next piece, which is positioning. Maybe your offer is the right packaging. Maybe it's the right pricing, and maybe it's just simply positioning. Maybe it's that you need to shift your messaging. Maybe you need to communicate something in a different way that speaks to where your target market is right now, from what's top of mind for them, how maybe they're thinking about their problems in a different or more evolved way, or something that fits more with what's going on around them. Sometimes we mistakenly end up in a place of that revolutionary change where we throw out an offer or completely start over on something when there was actually nothing wrong with the packaging, the pricing, or the positioning. What the real issue was that there was not enough planning. The way that it was approached, the way that you launched it, the way that you released it, there simply wasn't a solid enough plan or enough time behind it in order for it to be successful. So it typically comes down to one of those four. It's packaging, pricing, positioning, or planning, or a combination of those. when you are looking at why something is not selling as well as you'd like, why something is not converting as well as you'd like, or why something is just simply not landing in the way that you expect it to. And each one of those things leads to making pivots in your particular offers. Now, sometimes it's even broader than just an individual offer. It ends up being your full business model. Maybe you really look at and say, I actually think I'm going to lean a little bit more right now into doing done for you services, or I'm going to de-emphasize the agency part of my business and go more into a group offer. Maybe you're in a season where you want to do more one-on-ones. I know that I am. It's even though I am all about having a scalable offer and I absolutely love the group work that I do. I'm excited about the Propel program that we're currently in the middle of. And if you did not join us for Q3, it will be back again for Q4. So you can still head over to leanoutmethod.com/propel and get yourself on the priority notification list. And you'll be the first to know when we open up the doors for Q4. But I'm really excited about those aspects of what I'm doing. But I also love that deep connection and deep transformation that we're able to do when I work with someone one-on-one, whether that's a VIP day, if they book me as a COO for a single day, or as someone who books me as a fractional COO or CMO who's with their business for a long period of time. I do really like that one-on-one work. So I'm finding that personally, I want to be gravitating and spending a little bit more of my time there while my team is working really closely with so many of our clients and more of our group offerings. So when you look at your business model, there's a lot of different ways that you can change things. Sometimes it's reimagining the entire business model. Sometimes it's looking at a component of it where specifically you are spending your time and you're having the others on your team or around you able to support and take different pieces of things. But all of these are pivots that you can make. And I think that they are important to do at all points in time in your business. They're important to do when things are going exceptionally well, but they're especially important to do when things are not going as well as you'd like. However, the one caveat that I do want to put out there, and I know I've said this, and I'm going to say it probably a couple more times in this episode because it is so important. Be strategic and not reactive. It is so easy to fall into a place of panic or to fall into a place of fear and to make reactive decisions that you later regret or that end up damaging your brand. And that's absolutely not what you want. You really want to be super intentional, super strategic about what you're doing. And the way to do that is to try to look at your business really objectively. It can be hard to do when you're so deep in it, which is where, again, it can be so helpful to have a coach or mentor or consultant or even business bestie by your side, helping you to ask those tough questions and kind of challenge the way you're thinking about it so that you can be objective. But if you can look objectively and say, where do I want to take my business? What's the direction that I want to go in? Has there been a change to that big, bold vision that I have? Has there been a change to my longer term goals? Okay, how about the short term? What are some things that I can experiment with? What are some things I can try? What are some small pivots that I can make to see if I get better results in the short term? And how can I do that in a way that's still going to take me where I want to take this business long term? Now, the reality is when people get into really challenging situations, sometimes they say yes to things that are different than the things they'd say yes to if everything was going perfectly. They had more client requests than they could possibly take on. They feel like they could be a little bit more discerning. And there is some truth to that. Absolutely. We've got to support our team. We've got to pay ourselves. We want to be able to reinvest back in our business. We want to be able to continue to grow and scale, right? All of those things take certain decisions that need to be made. And sometimes you make those decisions differently based on how close to or how far you are from those things being possible. However, there is one thing that you never, ever want to compromise. So my one tip for you when you're having to make more challenging decisions, and you might be evaluating saying yes to something that you wouldn't want to say yes to at the best of times, is you never want to say yes to something that is not in alignment with your values. Your values should guide so many of the decisions that you end up making in your business. That happens pretty naturally when you're in the best of times. Again, if you have more business than you can handle, you're naturally going to be really discerning and only say yes to the things that you want to do most because you have the luxury to be able to do that. But when you're in a place where every opportunity feels really precious to you, you're more likely to say yes to things that might not be the thing you'd be jumping up and down to say yes to otherwise, but you do want to make sure that it is not in conflict with or opposition to your core values. That's where I find you do not want to pivot. You never want to pivot on your values. Now, your values can obviously evolve and up level over time. You sometimes get more discerning over time or more clear on what your values are over time, but you don't want to compromise your values, especially not as a result of feeling like you need to make a pivot because things might not be working the way that you'd like them to. So hopefully things are going exceptionally well for you in your business right now. But if you are in a period where you're trying to figure out what is going on, what do I need to change? Where do I need to reimagine some things? Remember that there is power in the pivot, and making those small changes, especially those micro pivots, sometimes can lead to really incredible results. And they're important to do even if your business is going exceptionally well right now, but they're especially important to do if you're in a period where things are not going as well as you would like. One of the key pieces of success and having a growth mindset is looking at your business as a series of experiments and knowing that not everything's going to work, not everything is going to continue to work, and that it does not mean that there is anything wrong with you or your business. It's just the nature of entrepreneurship. It's the nature of this very dynamic, very fast-paced, very fast-moving entrepreneurial world that we are a part of. And we need to, as small businesses, be adaptive. We need to be agile. We need to be lean. We need to be willing to pivot, to try different things, to experiment with different things, and to keep on going and stay committed and really just do what needs to be done to keep our business thriving and to keep our business going when it feels like we have no idea how to make our business thrive next. There's something I can say with high confidence after running my own businesses for so many years and spending so many decades working with other businesses, is that if you are consistently showing up, if you are continuing to objectively look at your business, if you are trying different things, if you are experimenting and you are continuing to keep going and keep that commitment going, you will be successful. Not every single offer you put out there is always going to be successful. Not every single thing is always going to land. There's always going to be things that you're going to need to keep changing and keep adapting. But if you keep going and you keep showing up and you have the right experimentation mindset, it really makes a world of difference, and you will absolutely get through the hardest of times and you will thrive and exceed in the best of times. I hope you got a lot of value out of this episode. If you would like any help and would like a partner to look at your business together and look at where you can pivot so that you are getting increased results in the short term or in the long term, so you have a business that's really aligned with that long-term vision that you have, that rich, fulfilled life that you'd like to live, and looking for opportunities in the short term where you can make some pivots and make some optimizations and changes so you're getting better results and really setting yourself up for both short-term and long-term success. As I mentioned, I'm really loving working with people privately, so I've actually shifted my schedule and I do have some opportunities available to either work together for a single day, 90 days, or even as a fractional member of your team as a COO or CMO, what I call a CSOO, a Chief Strategy and Operating Officer. So you can put time on my calendar at leanoutmethod.com/consult if you'd like to chat about any of those options and what it may be like to partner together. If you regularly find value in this podcast and what I talk about, I'd love to have a conversation with you in real life over Zoom, learn a little bit more about you and your business, and see if there is an opportunity where we'd be able to partner together to really accelerate your results. So I look forward to seeing your name come through on my calendar if that aligns for you. And I will see you again next week. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Lean Out Your Business podcast. I hope you got a lot of value and actionable insights from today's show and would love if you take a moment to leave us a review. If you have any questions on today's episode or on how to lean out your business, join us over in our private Facebook community where every week we do live training and Q&A, and I'd love to have you be part of the conversation. Head to leanoutmethod.com/group to join us. And before you go, be sure to subscribe to the show so you're the first to know when we release a new episode. We'll see you next week.